Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome back to the last episode of my How Black and White 2 move tutors affect each Pokemon of every single generation thing. So we're going to kick today's episode off with looking at Torterra, and the cool thing about Torterra is that its Dream World ability is Shell Armor, and Torterra is normally seen as a wall of sorts in the NU tier, as well as Grotle, which can work just as well because you don't have that 4 times weakness to ice, and Violet Grotle now can run Sleep Talk and Stealth Rock, which is really cool. So that definitely gives that some viability. But Torterra can now run that with Superpower as well. And unlike most of the other starter Pokemon, Shell Armor is really good because you don't get crit, and when you're at Wall, you can't. I mean, obviously, not getting a critical hit is really great. So you can still run the Overgrow ability if you want, but now you have all the options of using all of these moves like Superpower and Stealth Rock and Sleep Talk with the Shell Armor ability, which is really cool. As for Infernape, it does now get the Thunder Punch and Fire Punch moves, which is awesome because it does get the Iron Fist ability. So now Infernape can potentially be even more powerful than it was because it'll have those moves being boosted. It can also now run Stealth Rock with Iron Fist, which is really cool. And now, since you do have Fire Punch, I'm not sure if you had it already, but because you can run Fire Punch with Iron Fist, that kind of somewhat negates using Flare Blitz, because Flare Blitz obviously has the recoil, and Fire Punch now is somewhere near around the same power of Flare Blitz. Not as powerful, obviously, but it's better than it was before, so that might actually be the option that people go to. And obviously, Close Combat, I believe, is boosted as well. So that'll be really great for Infernape. As for Empoleon, it unfortunately is the only one of the starters that doesn't really get anything exciting. I couldn't really see any new strategy behind any of these moves it gets because it already learns all of them, I'm pretty sure. And if it couldn't use them with its Dream World ability, it really doesn't matter because its Dream World ability isn't that great as far as I know. I forget what it is off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's not anything that you would want to use over Torrent. As for Staraptor, again, like Empoleon, I guess, it doesn't really get anything other than the ability to use Heat Wave and Tailwind and Roost with the Reckless ability, but obviously Staraptor is more so a physical attacker, but actually having Heat Wave in OU, since I believe Staraptor is borderline, could be pretty cool for it just because of how many steel types there are, but it does have Close Combat for that as well. So I'm not really sure how that would play into its favor if it is a possible thing to use on it with some success. But having Reckless Staraptor is good as it is anyway. So having Roost with it is actually pretty cool. I probably just lied before by saying that it really didn't benefit from this, but it did. Barrel, though, did not get anything. Its Dream World ability is Moody, and you can't use that anyways because that is banned for obvious reasons. But all these moves are already learned, so Barrel is basically the same Pokemon. Kricketune now gets Hyper Voice and Heal Bell, which is really cool for it, but honestly, I've never seen a defensive Kricketune in my life. That might be something you can do now because it has Heal Bell, so that's cool for it. And obviously, it does have the Technician ability, but it already does get, Bug Bite, so that'll already be boosted anyway, and there's nothing really else here that will benefit Kricketune in any way. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Luxray can now run Guts with Superpower, which is really cool. It couldn't do that before, so now that actually makes Guts Luxray really powerful. Also, with the addition of the Wild Charge move, it can now do more damage than it was able to do without having to rely on Thunderfang with Guts. So that's really cool for Luxray and something that might spark some more usage in it. Roserade, I believe, is the exact same thing it was. All these moves had already learned, so it's nothing too big for it. Rampardos, on the other hand, is kind of ridiculous, even more so than it already was now, because Rampardos gets Sheer Force, and Rampardos has, like, ridiculous attack. I think it's, like, base 160, somewhere around there. So it already has, like, one of the highest attacking stats in the game, and now it can have Thunder Punch and Fire Punch. And I think Zen Headbutt is not a level up move for it, so it can now run all of those at Sheer Force, getting them boosted damage. Iron Head as well, so that's pretty darn amazing for Rampardos, and definitely something that you will need to watch out for, because it's going to be doing intense amounts of damage. Bastiodon, unfortunately, does not gain anything. I mean, it's not like it really needed anything. It's pretty good where it is right now in terms of being like really good from both the special and physical side as a wall. So, and maybe something that would boost its attack would help it out, but overall, Bastiodon's relatively the same as it was. Wormadam, they all get Electroweb now, all different forms of it, which is kind of cool. But the one thing that is really important to note is that Wormadam Ground can now use Stealth Rock. It couldn't before, only Wormadam Steel was able to. So that's something really cool for it. But other than that, these three forms of it get the Overcoat ability, which is something you might want to use if you're maybe using some type of team in weather like sand or hail, but I don't really see that being too common with a Wormadam on it. So I'm not really sure anything else is important to note about these guys. Mothim also getting Electroweb because of Wormadam is cool because obviously it's one of those other like Tinted Lens Quiver Dance Pokemon, like the 5 others of them. So Electroweb is cool for it, gives it some more type coverage, and that could be very helpful on a Tinted Lens set. Also, if it couldn't use Roost with Tinted Lens, which is very possible, it can do that now, and that's great because it does have the 4 times weakness to Stealth Rock. Vespiquen did not get anything. It's as simple as that. All these moves it already could do, and its Dream World ability, which is Unnerve, is not really anything worth noting, so it's basically the same as it was. Pachirisu, on the other hand, actually does benefit from the fact that it does have Volt Absorb in the Dream World, so that's really good because you can now use all of these moves with Volt Absorb if you couldn't before. And honestly, Pachirisu is not as terrible as people think. It's just very niche usage. But having Volt Absorb with it is great once that's released. So that'll be really cool. Floatzel is the same. Nothing new for it, and that is unfortunate for Floatzel. Same thing for Cherrim. There's really not a lot of awesome things that the 4th gen Pokemon get, which is something I'm noticing as I go through this, and I looked through it before as well. Gastrodon can now run Earth Power with Sand Force, which is its Dream World ability. I'm not sure if that's something that people would want to use because of obviously how great having the Storm Drain ability is. But honestly, if you wanted to run like a Gastrodon with Earth Power, like a Specs one in Sand, that is a lot more powerful now because of this fact. Obviously, it could use Earthquake as well because it can hit from both the physical and special side. But maybe a potential Sand Force set that I can now run would be like Sleep Talk, Rest, Earth Power, Scald, and that could kind of allow it to be used in most weather, which is really cool because Scald obviously will be boosted by rain. So that's cool for Gastrodon. Ambipom does not get anything other than the fact that it can now run the punches with the Skill Link ability, but I still see Technician as being more important for Ambipom to have as opposed to running Skill Link with like Fury Swipes or something, because it doesn't get the tail slap thing that Cinccino does. Drifblim, though, is one of the only Pokemon from this gen that I have been particularly excited about, because of the fact that it now gets Tailwind as a tutor move in 5th gen, and Drifblim's Dream World ability is the Flare Boost thing, whereas if you're burned, your special attack increases by 1 stage, and you had no way of actually making Drifblim faster with that attack boost, so now you can run Tailwind with a Flame Orb to activate the Flame Boost thing, and then you can deal out massive damage, because Drifblim has really good attacking stats, and that'll be really cool for it. So I'm actually looking forward to using a Drifblim with Tailwind, and also, you can run Trick with it, and possibly trick a Flame Orb onto something else with a set like that. So that's really cool. Lopunny does not get anything, unfortunately. It's actually no, it learns Hyper Voice, that is new, but it's not really useful for Lopunny because of the fact that it is primarily a physical attacker from what I've experienced, or just something that likes to abuse its ability that ignores items. I'm drawing a blank on it right now, but I don't know if Heal Bell is new for it either, but it can use that now if it couldn't. Sorry about my lack of knowledge there. Mismagius now has Foul Play, I don't know how that could potentially be useful because Wismagius is obviously very good as a special attacker, but it's something, so that could be cool for it. Um, Up next we have Honchkrow, and Honchkrow does get Foul Play as well, which is really cool for it. But more importantly, Honchkrow can now run Superpower and Roost with the Moxy ability, which it was not able to do before. It can also use Heat Wave with it now too. Um, and since Honchkrow actually has really good both physical and special attack, you could potentially even run special moves on a Moxy set, just because your special attack is really good as it is, and then you can just continue to boost your physical. So that could actually be really great for Honchkrow. Superpower obviously is very welcome because it didn't have a fighting move with Moxy, and now it's going to be very difficult to deal with once it can get behind a sub, start sucker punching things, and there won't be a lot of types that can resist its moves, namely, like Superpower and Sucker Punch and Drill Peck or Brave Bird, whichever one you choose. That's like really good type coverage, and with Moxy, Honchkrow's going to be a beast. Per Ugly now gets Foul Play, which is cool. Per Ugly does have Thick Fat as an ability, so it could potentially be a defensive type set that can now make use of Foul Play, which is really great. But other than that, and other than learning Hyper Voice, which a lot of normal types can now use, Per Ugly didn't really change much. Changeling, and yeah, it doesn't really matter because obviously Chimecho. Skunk Tank can now use Foul Play if it couldn't before, so that's really cool for it. But other than that, it really didn't gain anything from the Dream World, from its Dream World ability or the move tutors. Bronzong is pretty much the same deal. You're obviously wanting to use the Levitate ability or the Heat Proof ability on it, so you wouldn't use its Dream World ability, and it's basically getting the same moves that it can already learn. Chatot does not change at all either, which kind of sucks. I really, really like Chatot a lot. I think it's one of the coolest Pokemon just because it has a music note as its head. But it's unfortunate that it doesn't gain anything particularly awesome from the 5th gen new move tutors. Spiritomb now gets Foul Play, which is very good for it because obviously Spiritomb can be a very defensive Pokemon as well. So having Foul Play on it could be beneficial to you so that you don't have to run like other attacking moves. And obviously having no weaknesses is fantastic for Spiritomb, so you won't have to really worry about fighting types as much as other dark Pokemon that are using Foul Play. And that's really great for it, just in general. As for the Dragon Gibbs, the Gabs, and the Gars, Garchomp being able to use Stealth Rock with what's it called? Rough Skin is now a thing, so that's really good for it. And if it couldn't use Outrage with Rough Skin, it can do that now, because I know that some Pokemon have to rely on a TM for Outrage or something like that last gen, or a Roof Tutor. But now it can do that. But another thing that I'm excited about is the fact that Gabite can now run Sleep Talk with the Rough Skin ability, which is something I've wanted to do for a very long time, just because I like the idea of being like a Violite with good defenses, and then being able to kind of abuse the Rough Skin ability. Also, having Dragon Ground Stab type coverage is amazing. So Gabite could potentially rise in usage with a set like that, and I'm really excited to use something like that. As for Lucario, I believe it can now run the punches with Justified, which is very cool, and it can also use Dual Chop with that as well. That's new for it. And obviously, Justified is a really great ability, and Lucario has a 4x resistance to dark moves, much like Cobalion. So this could actually be something that really sparks some increase in Lucario usage as well. And that's really great for it. I didn't even know it had Drain Punch before, but that's really cool. And now with the Power Boost, that could even become more common on Lucario. Hippowdon is the same as far as I know. I'm not sure if it could learn Superpower before, but it can now, but it's not like it matters because you're normally just going to run Earthquake on it with like Ice Fang or something. So Hippowdon is relatively the same as it was. Drapion as well is basically the same as it was. I don't think it gets a really cool Dream World ability to make use of, so it's going to be relatively the same. Toxicroak, now it gets Dual Chop, which is very cool, and that's really great for it. Obviously allowing it to increase its coverage. It does already have Ice Punch, but it could have a more interesting usage because it is more powerful than Ice Punch by 5. But I'm pretty sure people are going. Ooh, it does learn Foul Play too. But I'm pretty sure people are going to be sticking to the dry skin Toxicroak for rain teams. So I don't think really much is going to change about that. Carnivine does not get anything, unfortunately, and Carnivine's one of those Pokemon that I really like, but is unfortunately not that great. It's cool with Levitate and all, but it doesn't really gain anything from these tutors. Same thing with Lumineon, but Lumineon can use Storm Drain now, which is really cool, so that's great for it, but unfortunately it does not get any new moves. Same thing with Abomasnow. There's actually, okay, because I covered like half of these Pokemon in previous videos, at least their prior evolutions, I don't really see a need to kind of discuss these much, or at least these next few. But Weavile getting Foul Play is cool, and obviously Magnezone being able to get Electroweb could be potentially useful because Magnezone doesn't have the best speed. Lickilicky now can use all these moves with Cloud 9, which is great, and may spark some Lickilicky usage in OU possibly. I obviously wouldn't bank on that, but it's cool that it can now use that ability. Oh, I don't think it could run Wish because Wish on Lickilicky is like an event. So now that I can use Sleep Talk, it has another means of recovery, which is great for it. So that's awesome. Rhyperior now can learn Drill Run, but it does have Earthquake anyway. But if you want to be cool and try to get crits, that's awesome. But other than that, it is the same Pokemon. Tangrowth as well. I'm not sure if it couldn't use any of these moves with the Regenerator ability, much like I said with the Tangela video, or when I was talking about Tangela in the previous video. But it can now do those, which is awesome for it. But I still think it has the same options in general, so it's really not that big of a deal. And Electivire and Magmortar both get Dual Chop now, which is cool. And Magmortar gets Electroweb, which is cool because Magmortar often relies on trying to get a motor drive boost. So now that you can lower something's speed, you can kind of make up for that a little bit. But that might actually help it out a lot, possibly. But you can run all these moves now with both Magmortar and Electivire with the Vital Spirit ability if you choose to do so. Togekiss gets Super Luck as its Dream World ability, but I don't see that being any more useful than having, you know, Serene Grace with Air Slash and Thunder Wave, because everybody knows how much that sucks. But being able to do that Super Luck with like Heat Wave, and it also now learns Hyper Voice, which is really cool. But if you're using Super Luck, you can't even use Tri Attack, and Tri Attack with Serene Grace is way better in my opinion than Hyper Voice, even though it's slightly more powerful. So Togekiss really doesn't get anything crazy. Neither does Yanmega, as far as I'm aware. So that's basically the same. Leafeon and both Glaceon and Leafeon can now learn Hyper Voice, like a lot of things now, which is cool. But neither of their Dream Lord abilities, maybe Glaceon's because I believe it gets Ice Body, or yeah, it gets Ice Body, might be useful with any of these new moves that I can learn from the tutors. But overall, I think these Pokemon are basically going to be the same as they were. And if Leafeon wasn't able to run Seed Bomb with Chlorophyll, it can now... Wait, no, it has Leaf Blade anyways. What am I talking about? That's not even useful. Forget I said anything. Gliscor, obviously, as people have been talking, can now use Poison Heal with Roost and Stealth Rock, which is cool for it. It's really not as big of a deal as people say, in my opinion. But that's nice. And it can obviously... Oh! It gets Sky Uppercut now as like a level up move, which is the weirdest freaking thing, but that's really cool for it. And that actually might be usable on offensive Gliscor sets now, which is really cool. So that's one thing that is pretty awesome about Gliscor. And I like the fact that I can learn that because it makes a lot of sense in my book. Mamoswine, as I said with Piloswine, can now use Superpower and Endeavor and Stealth Rock and Sleep Talk, all with the Thick Fat ability, which really helps them out because now they don't have a weakness to fire, and they can now resist ice moves, which they weren't able to do before. Porygon Z is the same, I believe. I don't really... Oh, well, learning Foul Play is new for it, but I believe that it will generally be the same Pokemon that you're used to seeing. Gallade gets Justified. That's also cool. So that could be more useful on it because it obviously can boost attack when it's hit by a dark move. And that's also cool. Gallade gets Hyper Voice, which is cool, but obviously Gallade is the physical attacker. But now it can also run Drain Punch with Justified, which is new, so that actually might help it out a lot. And obviously, if you want to use that wacky Gallade set that I made a while back that I really liked, you can now do that with the Justified ability instead of Steadfast, so that's really cool. Probopass is the same, I believe. There's nothing in here that I believe it couldn't learn already, so that doesn't really change much about Probopass. Same thing with Dust Noir. It only has one ability, and all of these moves I believe it could already learn. Froslass now can, though, run the Cursed Body ability with Ice Punch and Pain Split, and Trick, I believe, which it couldn't do before, so that's really cool for Froslass. Cursed Body is a very weird ability, but if you run like a sub Froslass set, you could potentially get the one move that something could hit you with, because it is a ghost type, to be disabled, and then they'll have to switch, which is awesome. Kind of similar to Jellicent. Rotom getting Electro Web is kind of cool, but other than that, Rotom is basically the same. Obviously, it has all those forms now, so it's really not changing much aside from the things that we already know about it that got improved with 5th gen. Uxie, or Uxie, I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced, can now run Foul Play, which is very good for it, because Uxie has massive defenses and not the best attack stats. So that's really cool for it, and will definitely help it out a lot. But other than that, all the Pixies, I believe, if that's what they're supposed to be, are relatively the same as they were before. Dialga and Palkia can now use Hyper Voice, which they couldn't before. I don't see that as being too useful, but that's something new for them. And Heatran is basically the same, I believe. It can now run Earth Power with the Flame Body ability, but I don't know if anybody would want to give up Flash Fire for Flame Body. But that is something, and it could also now run Stealth Rock with that too. Regigigas does not get anything as far as I know, but the annoying thing about Regigigas is that it has no means of recovery, but they give it Sleep Talk anyways, just to be annoying. Obviously, it could still learn Sleep Talk to speak and attack through other people's sleep-inducing moves, but it unfortunately still does not get Rest or Protect or Detect or anything like that, so nothing really helps it out too much. Giratina, I believe, is the same except for Hyper Voice, and obviously that's like a recurring theme. I'm not sure if it could get Tailwind already, but I'm pretty sure it would have been able to. But I think Giratina is basically the same as it was. Same thing with Cresselia, and Fion and Manaphy. I believe all these legendaries did not gain anything at all from the black and white move tutors, which kind of sucks. So yeah, Darkrai can now use Foul Play. That's kind of cool. But Shaman and Arceus, I believe, are both all the same. So really, the legendaries of this gen didn't really gain anything too crazy. If I'm missing something, please let me know, because I don't really know at this point. But I'm pretty sure that all of these guys are basically the same as they were before. But that is it for 4th gen. I have to say that this gen is probably the most unlucky with the move tutors, but mainly because of the fact that 4th gen Pokemon are generally really good anyway for the most part. So it's not like they're really missing out on too much. But that is it for this video. So thank you for bearing with me as I analyzed all 5 gens and looked through the move tutors and everything. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to the crazy things that are going to happen to the metagame once this is all released. But thank you all for watching as always, and take care and goodbye.